Stablecoins are becoming an increasingly important part of the global financial system, with governments, regulators, banks, and crypto companies all racing to shape what comes next. While the United States has moved quickly to establish rules around the sector, questions remain about how Canada will compete and whether there's room for Canadian dollar backed digital assets in a market largely dominated by the US dollar. Joining me now to discuss the future of stablecoins in Canada is Brendan Caldwell, Director of Caldwell Securities Limited. Brendan, thank you so much for the time.
Well, it's great to be here in person.
Well, how do you see Canada's stablecoin landscape evolving, both on the regulatory side and in terms of new products coming into the market?
Well, I think what's interesting that stable coins are becoming a way to transfer not only money but purchase goods and services. That's kind of like Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies grown up older brother or something like
Mhm.
that. I don't know the quite analogy to use. Bitcoin, Ethereum, these other cryptocurrencies, their value is based on sort of general agreement. We've decided this is worth, and there's a certain scarcity value because there's, in case of Bitcoin, fewer and fewer of them being manufactured, and people spend tremendous amounts of money digitally mining them. But everybody agreed they're sort of worth something. But they're not really backed by anything other than this mutual agreement. Stable coins, on the other hand, are backed by the currency, particularly the notes, the treasury bills, and dollars of the actual host country. So, U.S. dollar stablecoin is backed by U.S. Dollars. Canadian dollar stablecoins backed by the loonie and loonie-dominated treasury notes. So, I think it'll be very important for Canada to play a larger role because at the moment, as you alluded to, the U.S. Has dominated the market, and if there's going to be a really any sort of bilateral trade or international trade or any sort of return to global trade, I think there needs to be more than one currency, or at least that currency probably shouldn't be controlled by the United States of America.
Well, now, as you mentioned, the US has moved faster on stablecoin regulation. How does Canada compare, and could we fall behind if the market becomes mostly US dollar dominated?
Well, let's be clear, we're already way behind. So the Genius Act, so-called, or that's what was in the United States, was the act that really launched the stable coin era. And it's the genius of the Genius Act, from Americans' point of view, is that with fewer and fewer international central banks wanting to buy U.S. dollar denominated paper, treasury bills, treasury notes, to create a currency that literally has to buy your paper, has to buy your notes in order to exist, creates this whole other market. And if that currency, that US dollar stablecoin, comes to dominate international trade, they've created a market for the US debt at a very time when fewer and fewer countries want to buy US debt. So Canada needs to be a part of that game because if, in case we missed it, we're racking up billions of dollars of debt at our own. So if for nothing else, we're either going to have to figure out a way to balance our national budget or become part of the new international currency system that's being created with stablecoin. So the Carney government, to its credit, bit behind the eight ball, but has moved fairly quickly and made this possible. So the new guidance coming out of Ottawa is that Canadian dollar stablecoins will be treated as currency rather than as securities. Why does that matter? Because currency is centrally regulated by the federal government, and we can have a national strategy. Securities, every single province and all three territories have their own securities regulator, and they all will want to put their fingers in the pie. So if we're going to compete on a global scale, we need to do it relatively simply, quite quickly, and without 13 different regulatory bodies wanting to weigh in on the topic.
And do you think that there's a real use case for the Canadian dollar stablecoins, or will most stablecoin activity continue to happen in US dollar?
Well, let's hope there is. I do believe that there is. I mean, both the point of a stablecoin, why even bother, is that we're so used to, frankly, when it comes to moving money around, moving securities around, doing any sort of financial transactions, some sort of 19th century system, albeit powered by 21st century technology. But I mean, why do you need Western Union to send money overseas? Why do you even need your bank? Why, if you want to send money, was it a Monday? Send money on a Monday, why does it get there on Thursday?
Right.
Why to any of these questions? And it's because that's the way the system has been geared.
Mhm.
The securities business is no different than this. So if we can find a way to make the transfer of money both quicker and cheaper without all the speed bumps, that will actually help considerably. And I think Canada has a role to play. I mean, the largest trading relationship that ever existed in the history of the world has been between Canada and the United States. It would be a real pity if all of that happened in US dollars.
Right.
Shouldn't some percentage of that be in the loonie, stablecoin loonie, that is?
And who do you think is best positioned to win in stablecoins in Canada? Is it banks, fintechs, crypto native players, or global issuers like Circle?
Um, I think it may end up being a combination. At the moment, there's just one Canadian dollar stablecoin that's out there and running. And how does one say this? Disclaimer alert. We are very much involved in that. Tetra Digital is
Mhm.
a private company that through Urbana Corporation, which is a public company that we have a big investment in. So that's my disclaimer. Anyway, Tetra Digital has just launched with Urbana, with National Bank, with the Alberta Treasury,
Mhm.
with Shopify, with a number of organizations to launch the first Canadian dollar stablecoin just in the last week or two. And it's a matter of getting traction. It's with any network effect. The more people use it, the more they're likely to use it. We've seen that on
Right.
websites and trading platforms, and indeed with currency. So we are cautiously optimistic that it'll get some traction. The banks have been very slow, the Canadian banks, because they do like to have their protected market. There's a lot of money in what they do, the way they do it.
Mhm.
So our expectation is the banks will come in at some point. The Canadian banks will come in at some point. Our best guess is that international players are going to double down on the US dollar rather than in Canada. I think there is an argument for every country, for Britain, for Europe, for Japan, to have their own stable coin. I think, yeah, so I think it's
Mhm.
worth every country investing in this because I think it'll be a faster, more economical, and less speed bumpy system.
And what role do you see stablecoins playing in the broader financial system over the next few years in Canada?
Well, I think it could be everything from, uh, I mean, I believe some retail stores are taking Bitcoin. Well, that's fine as far as it goes, but I do think that there will be, so every people get paid in Canadian dollars,
Right.
normally speaking, and Canadian dollars is what you transact in. The role they have really is to disintermediate, to get rid of all of the unnecessary middle people in the financial system. I think it's going to be really critical, though, to have a Canadian dollar offering, and indeed other countries to have an offering, because I mean the U.S. has used its power over currency.
Mhm.
Um, it used the SWIFT system, which was the international money transfer system, which is all based on the
Right.
U.S. dollar, to shut out international actors that it doesn't like. So it's mad at Russia, or it can just shut them out of the ability to transfer money. They can
Mhm.
now not transfer money. You can say, well, that's a good thing if they, go after the those nasty evil Russians. But uh, when you start weaponizing the business of trade,
Right.
you create a degree of uncertainty that we've even seen just in the few months since uh, the launch of the U.S. dollar stable coin. You've seen them freeze all the Iranian assets that are on the platform. You can also say that's a good thing,
Mhm.
and it's always a good thing until they come for you. So just having a government decide that you can or cannot trade, can or cannot conduct business on the international, and have that government be the U.S. government, I'm not sure all of our viewers or everybody in Canada would necessarily be comfortable with, even if they happen to agree with individual decisions. So I think from a trade, but also a political security reason, it's going to be very important for Canada to have its own stablecoin.
Well, Brendan, thank you so much for the time. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Theresa.